I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Pietro Gagliano. And he's a pioneer of new forms of media that allow humans to understand what it means to be a machine and allow machines to understand what it means to be human. Pietro founded Transforms.AI and has previously co-founded Secret Location. His innovative work has been recognized through hundreds of industry awards and nominations, including the first ever Emmy Award for a virtual reality project. So please welcome to the stage Pietro Gagliano. Come on up.
Hey, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. It feels real. Like this feels real, right? Like to be in a room again with people. I haven't done this for years, so I really appreciate Sean and Jason and the rest of the team for organizing this. And of course, thank you to the good Lord for inviting us into his or her home. Today, I hope you like this presentation that I've put together for you. I want to take you through just an introduction and overview on my past and how I ended up believing that machines could be creative. I want to go behind the scenes on some projects that we've done at Transforms.AI and talk about the state of the situation today and dabble in the future a little bit as well. And then some Q&A and hopefully more A's than Q's, but I'm still just figuring it out like the rest of us too. This story starts 5 or 6 years ago. That's me in Hobbiton. Sitting in my office at Entertainment One. I had a great job and, had co-founded a company that we sold to E1 and, benefits and good salary and vacation and the whole works. It was great. But my whole life and then later career, I always thought about robots and AI and, growing up with science fiction and whatnot, you think about these things. But I started ringing this bell, 5 or 6 years ago, like, hey, creative machine intelligence might be coming. The AI might do our job better than we do it. It might be a better editor, a better illustrator, etc. And I was worried at the time. Back then, I was worried that machines would be more creative than I would be. But when I looked it up, I didn't even know what to Google because this isn't a real screenshot, but this is what it felt like. I'd Google like creative AI, robots making art. Like there's stuff in the research world that was bubbling up, but it wasn't in the cultural zeitgeist at all. In fact, that when you'd ask people at the time, if machines could be creative, creativity felt like it was the holy grail of humanity. No way. A robot could drive a car, but it could never, ever be an artist. So despite that, I don't know what I was thinking. I quit my job and formed a small team and started a new company called Transitional Forms. And as the name would suggest, we wanted to focus on not just creative machine intelligence, but evolution and the evolution of AI as it relates to culture. More specifically, I wanted to, given my background at Secret Location and Entertainment One, I'd done tons of work on interactive media and pioneered some stuff there. I was very much interested in how AI would evolve entertainment. And so I saw this paradigm shift coming, but didn't quite know how to break it down because it still felt a little early. So the way we did it was we looked at, if this is a paradigm shift that's coming and AI will indeed transform entertainment, what are the trends or, factors or qualities that AI will disrupt? And let's break it down from there. So we decided on three key factors. One we called three-way authorship. And now this is the idea that in the future, aka now, there will be a human director or a team of human authors that will create a sandbox for a system within which the audience will interact. And so audience interaction and human authorship, that's not new. That's video games. That's interactive films. That's been around for a while. But that in the future, aka now, there will be a generative systems, intelligent machines within that loop that will be able to regenerate the content on the fly as the audience pushes and pulls it at will. The second thing that we thought would disrupt entertainment through AI is the fact that content and platform were merging. So, coming from the entertainment world, I already saw that these pillars of music and film and television and games, they're all starting to blur together. And it's like, traditional media was struggling to kind of keep these things in their own individual boxes anyways. So that was a trend that was already coming. But we thought, with the democratization of tools and, content creation tools getting cheaper and more accessible all the time, AI is just going to light a fire under remix culture. And remix and modding culture were certainly on the rise. And we thought AI is definitely going to disrupt that or power that. And the third aspect that we looked at was a little weirder, a little more heady maybe, but we thought, storytelling is so deeply embedded in us as humans, it kind of is a technology. Storytelling is kind of an operating system by which we understand the world and by which we relate to each other. It's ultimately the way that we predict and create the future. So we thought, if machines are going to learn from us, which they do, and machines and humans learn from stories, well then machines can and maybe should learn from stories as well. And this is an idea that's something that we'll touch upon later. So the question then became, where do we start? Here's a new company with a big idea and no money. And, how do we break down these trends and these potential disruptions into things that we can start experimenting with right away? So, historically from entertainment, each new medium is rooted in its predecessor. So painting, for example, became, photography. And all the painters were like, you're getting the machine to do it, right? And then theater became film. And all the theater people were like, you're getting the machine to do it, right? And then radio became television. And, early television felt like radio. And early film felt like theater, etc. So what we decided to do is root it in traditional entertainment and, look at these verticals and see how we would disrupt them one at a time. So those were films, music, games, and television. And this is what I wanted to take everyone through today is some behind the scenes on 4 projects, some of them bigger, some of them smaller, and just share with you guys our learnings, our failures, our goals, thinking, etc. on these projects. The first project out of the gate was a dynamic AI film called Agents, and it was an immersive experience designed primarily for VR, although we ported it to other platforms. It was an immersive experience that was supposed to put the fate of these little AI creatures in the palm of your hand and make you feel responsible for these little creatures that were just born. A quick shout out to the National Film Board, first of all, because I came to them with a crazy idea and they were like, yeah, let's do it. And so without them, this first project wouldn't have even happened. They co-produced Agents with us, and the Canada Media Fund and Ontario Creates has supported us in a lot of the work that you're about to see as well. So shout out to these fine Canadian institutions for supporting innovation like this. So Agents was a tough one because now I'd sold through this idea that I wanted to put AI in a film, and we needed that as a company as a proof of concept because again, you're Googling this stuff, it doesn't exist, no one even knows what to call it. So we called it a dynamic film. Our goal was ultimately to prove a concept that we could insert real living AI into a film. And that we would use 3-way authorship where the audience could interact with them and change the film ultimately. at the time, this wasn't new to the world, but it was new to us. Reinforcement learning was quite hot. Google DeepMind was on the rise. And so we decided, instead of using traditional, like gaming AI, which is like, if this, then that behavioral trees, we would go for it. We'd go for real reinforcement learning, which meant that any agent that lived within our film could think for itself. It would actually have its own agency. It would be making its own decisions. So we wanted to try that. And ultimately, we wanted to pioneer a new medium. We didn't know what to call it. We ended up calling it a dynamic film. And, more on the learnings on that later. Here's some behind-the-scenes shots. The first top left corner image is an early prototype that we made to get these little creatures to live on top of a planet. And in this world, gravity goes straight down, so if they get too close to the edge, they'll fall off. And that was kind of the premise of the film. That was way, way, way harder to do than any one of us had thought, because they're two-dimensional creatures trying to live in a three-dimensional world. And there are so many times where we're like, oh, do we just change it and make it a flat plane? Is this too complicated? Probably should have, looking back. But we had early prototypes where we were training agents on the sphere and getting really interesting behavior. Anyways, I'll move on and show you the trailer of the final product. And if there's time at Q&A, I'm happy to come back to this project and share more learnings. I think this video will play. Whoops. I think it'll play. Here we go. Okay, great. There's a little gag here at the end. We were killing agents to make the film. Millions of them had to die to make this film. Anyways, but it's true. We were training these creatures round the clock to try to get them to survive in this world that we built, and it took hundreds of hours of computer training time in order to even just get them to understand how to survive on this planet. And so, yeah, millions of agents died for that project. But the results were that, we did successfully prove the concept. We did successfully get reinforcement learning creatures into a dynamic film. We did make a relationship with the artificial intelligence itself. Even the researchers that we were working with were like, hey, I look at charts and graphs all day, making reinforcement learning happen. And this is really cool because I get to be in virtual reality with these creatures. I can actually maybe learn more in this way than I would from charts and graphs. We discovered that reinforcement learning, like I said, is really, really, really hard, especially for people that don't have computer science degrees like myself. And we have a brilliant team, but this was all new territory for us. The biggest learning from this property was putting it out into the world and watching it be received as, say, a game rather than like a film or a piece of art. And as an artist, that was a hard pill to swallow. The interactions, there weren't, badges or goals or points or stuff like that worked into the experience from the start. And, putting it out into the world in a VR market made people think it was a game. And that was a difficult thing to position. But, the NFB supported us. We got into tons of film festivals. We won awards. So it was critically well received. And it's certainly a project that we're proud of. The second project that we experimented with, and from agents we broke into different aspects, like, okay, now we're going to try film music and TV and games. So in terms of AI music, this was a proof of concept that we built called Project Malachi, and it was a tool designed to play with real-time music generation. Music transformers were just starting to come out, and we wanted to see if we could, build a system to change music on the fly, because we would need that in our work in the coming years. So we based the system on. Has anyone seen the video online? It's super old. Of it's The Shape of Story. Kurt Vonnegut. He goes up on it's awesome. Check it out. He goes up on a blackboard and he does these shapes of stories where it's like, once upon a time, a guy falls in a hole and he gets out again, and that's the whole story, and he draws this shape. Anyways, we were fascinated by that and converting storytelling into curves and potentially converting curves into music, or using curves as an interface to drive music. So that was the concept behind this. This is the curve interface that we ended up using. And it did successfully make music. Oh, just a bit more about this curve interface. The red line is valence, and we ended up, valence being like positive mood or negative mood. So you can go from feeling really happy to really sad and then feeling really happy again. And we thought that's all we need for our work, because if it's generating in real time, we just need to, create a mood. But later we added more curves like energy and complexity and depth. Eventually, we got it to make music. It was pretty good music, and this was all integrated with other procedurally generated systems as well. But we got those systems to talk to the AI music transformers, and we made a novel interface with the curves and everything like that. It did make music, but ultimately, this was a project that we decided, this is a proof of concept. We're going to park it here. We'll revisit the concept again later when, say, we need an interactive music module. So in the future, we'll hopefully revisit this idea at some point. We also started work on in the field of AI gaming, and we built a project called Little Learning Machines, and we're in production on it right now, and I'll show you more about it in a second. But ultimately, it's a reinforcement learning game based on our learnings from agents. And we designed it to ideally let anybody train a neural network behavior within the game itself. So going into this project, we thought, okay, this isn't a game. There are sim games out there, and certainly there are games that overlap what this game is trying to do. But to our knowledge, we didn't really see any games that were of a genre where you're, especially using reinforcement learning, where you're training behavior of an NPC that's going to play the game for you. So it's not a game you play, it's a game you train creatures to play for you. So that was a fundamental thing we wanted to try. The other thing is, going through agents, reinforcement learning was so difficult, and the setup of it was crazy. We were like, could we make it so that you could install a game and start using reinforcement learning without any computer science degrees? So we really wanted to make this technology more accessible because it's so powerful, and so that was a goal from the start. And we also thought if we were able to do those two things, making an experience where we've got these cute little robots, these cute little creatures that you have to nurture and you have to understand how they learn, that would create human-machine empathy. Maybe you'll start caring for these little AIs because you understand how they learn. And I think, that's my favorite thing about this property, because we have a lot of fear around AI right now, and it's because we don't understand it. And if you grew up, say, playing a game like this and understood how these neural networks learn, maybe you wouldn't be so fearful, or maybe you'd have a better understanding. So here's some screen grabs of some behind the scenes. The top left is the first prototype that we made. We decided we would break down reinforcement learning into lists of rewards that function like sentences. So the way reinforcement learning works is it's based on positive rewards or negative rewards. So on loop, if an agent is going through a simulation and every time they touch a chair, they get a shock or they get a negative reward, they're going to learn eventually 1,000 times over, I'm not going to touch that chair. Or if they touch the podium and they get a positive reward, they go, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. So it's like training a puppy, sort of. So we decided we'd make this system where we'd use sentences like, I love chopping down trees, or I love, staying alive, or I fear falling off the edge. So that's how we approached building positive and negative reinforcement learning rewards, and it ended up being, the bottom right corner is the, we've improved it since then, but is a near final version of the game, which we're launching soon. So I'll play a trailer here, and more about that in a second. So we're still in production, just the tail end of production on this, but and we've just made huge improvements to how fast the trainer works. The problem with reinforcement learning is it takes a long time to run these simulations, thousands and thousands of simulations for these creatures to learn. But we've just made huge improvements to that, so we're updating the demo on Steam soon, so please check it out. But we did, in fact, discover a really unique gaming loop where we've got this overworld sandbox where you can put these creatures in a world, design the world around them, watch their behavior, and then bring them into this training cloud where you set up smaller simulations for them to learn from. So in this video, you can see the player is trying to train the agent to chop down trees. So they put a bunch of trees around the agent. They're going to set some rewards there to say, you like holding the axe, you like using the axe, you like chopping down trees, etc. And then run the simulation, a million times and hope that it learns how to chop down trees. And then they can take that creature, put it in the overworld, and watch it interact with the world around it and other creatures as well. We call them animos, by the way. I should be calling them animos. We've successfully gotten anyone, and I mean almost anyone, to train neural networks now through this game. You install the game, and you're ready to go. My son, who's 7 at the time, trained a neural network, so I'm pretty proud of that. And we've successfully made people care about these creatures. They're two-dimensional, simple thinking beings, and you can start really thinking of them as such when you play the game, especially when you're responsible for teaching them how to interact with their world. And the last project I wanted to share with you today is called Robots Make TV. It's our foray into AI television. And this one's a fun one. I've got an example coming up that I'll show you, but when we started this project, it was a couple years ago, and GPT-2 had just come out. And it's nowhere near, anyone who's played with GPT-2 is nowhere near as sophisticated as GPT-3 or GPT 3.5 or 4, all these announcements coming out now. So it's this large language model that was capable of telling basic stories. So we thought, hey, what happens if we tie that to a simulation and give characters some backstories and, put some virtual cameras in there? Could we generate real-time television using this language model. And we also wanted to see how far we could push the real-time aspects of it. What interaction we could give the audience, how fast could it regenerate, what kind of effects could we give the environment, could the characters react to those effects, etc. So we put together a proof of concept that we call Director's Chair. And this was a way of building scenes, setting up different characters, and then scripting a story. And you could ask the generator, I think this was GPT-3 at the time, ask the generator line by line, give me 3 options and I'm going to pick one, and then it'll make a script, and then you play the simulation. And we also played with this idea of running things autonomously, where we would pre-make a script that didn't have generations in it, that just said, everybody's happy or everyone's sad, and now cue some music. We run those bots, we called them, through this director's chair, and it would autonomously create content, which that was a big breakthrough for us as well. So from there, we decided we'd make a whole bunch of environments and a bunch of characters, and this is still work in progress. We're just starting production on this now. But we thought, if we can make all these show templates like a court TV and comedy and a cooking show and news, how could we use those templates and characters and formulas and remix content for it to autonomously generate infinitely? So here's a quick trailer for that property, and more after this.
The winner of the cooking challenges.
I've come to a verdict.
You people are all idiots.
Remember that if it's not broke, you must break it.
Someday you'll be an alien, but only if someone farts on you in outer space.
You both suck. You've earned experience for beating the monsters.
LOL.
Woof, woof, bark. Because no reality is too weird.
Yahoo!
Robots Make TV.
And it's a minute and a bit long, but I'm going to show you an example of one of the stories that it can output.
Babe, these potatoes are fucking delicious.
Yes, they are. It's been a while since I had some homemade mashed potatoes.
Kyle would make life better.
What?
This weird love potion I found.
The audience can throw food in Twitch chat.
Get us out of this rut we're in.
Love potion? That sounds like a terrible idea. Oh, that would make things even worse. I'd rather have it be the same kind of relationship we had before than be in a creepy relationship based on a love spell. I don't want to be a puppet in someone else's love story.
You're right. We don't need a love potion. We just need to talk to each other and make it work on our own. Let's forget about this whole thing and start fresh.
I think that's a great idea.
I love you. Let's go do something fun.
So real quick, I don't want to run out of time, but this is streaming. It should be streaming live right now on Twitch, twitch.tv/robotsmaketv. We haven't done a big promo on this. There's competition out there. We're refining some interactions and stuff like that to outdo the competition before doing a real push. But behind the scenes, sneak peek, go check it out. But yeah, it's something that we're having a lot of fun with, and we see a lot of potential. And so real quick, wanted to say today Transforms is trying to make some kind of AI synesthesia where we're translating different generator outputs and making them inputs and really creating dynamic media. Meanwhile, there's been a massive explosion in AI creativity. The thing that we thought that would never happen is happening right now, where, new language models, to Jason's point earlier, there's new announcements every day. New models are coming out in games and films and photography to allow us to enter a world where creators can make anything they want, potentially for free, at the touch of a button. And so as a creator, we feel threatened sometimes. I certainly have. But I think that, we have to learn from the creators of our past, the people who were in theater when film came out, the painters when photography came out, that we shouldn't feel threatened. It's just about creating a different relationship to our creativity. It's about embracing the paradigm shift that's in front of us. It's a big paradigm shift, but I think that it's just about thinking about creativity differently. For starters, three-way authorship is here. You will always have, not always, but we need to learn to embrace AI as a collaborative partner. We need to realize that the audience is the creator now, and that audiences will expect the ability to remix and regenerate their content to share with their own audience. And we need to pursue better stories and human-machine empathy. This AI is learning from us, so let's be aware of that and maybe use our storytelling to allow humans to understand what it means to be machine and machines what it means to be human. And of course, let's pursue this with love and not fear. I think that, we're about to experience limitless human imagination, and without a doubt, as a creative person, because of that, this is the most exciting time to be alive. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Jordan. That was
Pietro.
Pietro.
No.
Oh my God, I'm getting ahead
Jordan's
of myself.
fine.
Jordan's next. Pietro, have a seat. There's a few hundred people online as well. There are a lot of people submitting questions, so
Awesome.
I think one of them is, what is AI synesthesia? What does that mean?
It's a way of describing, like, right now you see, say, ChatGPT has just taken the world by storm, and GPT-4 just came out, and those are multimodal systems. So it's able to take an image input and convert it into text, for example. And
Right.
so the way I look at AI synesthesia is just, the way that synesthesia works in the brains of people who have it, where, you might have a smell and that converts into a color, or you might see a color and you hear a sound. So I think that the future of entertainment is about tying these different generators and models together to kind of cross-pollinate the information and create an experience.
So that's why you've got cookies hitting people in the head in your robot
That's exactly why.
TV show?
Yeah, that's exactly why.
Amazing.
I mean, it starts as fart jokes and throwing cookies right now, but the potential is pretty good.
It's I didn't realize it, but I watched that. I watched a few episodes already, and I had no idea that it was you. So that's
kidding.
fantastic.
Oh, awesome, good.
It's a really bizarre, hilarious show. There's a few other questions, and keep asking them. They'll bubble up. Anonymous asks, how is collaboration with AI challenging what it means to be an artist, director, or filmmaker?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, it's challenging all of our craft. We live our lives or our careers having gone to school or practicing a particular craft as a director or an editor or an illustrator. So it challenges us because it threatens our craft, right? Now this machine can draw better than me, can edit better than me.
So can I challenge you on that? Do you think that it really is going to replace creative artists? I think one of the questions here was from creative department fields, which skills or professions do you think will be in demand for this AI field? Like, is it going to actually create more demand for creative people?
Yes, but it'll be in a different way than we see it now. I keep saying paradigm shift, and it's like being on this side of the paradigm, we don't quite understand what it will be on the other side. Like if we were cave people and someone said, one day we'll grow our own food, like we just don't understand what that means.
Right.
But I don't think that artists are going away. I don't think human creativity is ultimately threatened. It's just we have to look at it in a different way. AI is our collaborator now.
I heard someone say that AI will not replace creative artists, but that creative artists using AI will replace other creative artists.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was a talk that was supposed to happen before mine that was going to cover that.
I think that's where I got the idea.
yeah, exactly. But that's totally what will happen. Just like any artist uses the tools that she or he has available to them, AI is just another one of those tools.
So one of the questions as well is, what should we be, as creative artists, what should we be learning right now from your perspective? What are the things that we should be sinking our teeth into so that we have a better understanding?
Well, there's so many tools that are available now for free. Certainly, everybody's tried ChatGPT. Run that through, your process and see what it does, and recognize the patterns that this large language model is understanding. Certainly, there's music tools, there's image generation tools. I'm a big Midjourney fan, and just learning how prompt design works. When we started Transforms, we thought about storytelling and how, what if you could tell a machine a story and it would give you an output. That's ultimately what's happening right now, but it's called prompt design. So get used to this idea that you're going to have to craft a sentence in a particular way to get a particular result.
So how do you deal with speed? That's something that's been asked here. Thank you, Jonathan. What advice do you give to creators who are dealing with this light speed singularity that's starting to happen?
Oh man, how does anyone? How do that's a question.
How do you deal with it?
I'm going to throw that right back to John and ask it. How do we deal with it? I think for us, it's been about trying to stay ahead of it conceptually, but then be nimble and hack together, proof that this thing will work along the way, and just take iterative approaches to everything that you do, because tomorrow we might wake up and there's a better tool to do something that you're struggling with.
That's a good point. I think there's one question here from a guy named, where'd it go? Sean Pucknell. What's the difference between machine learning, neural networks, and AI? Because you talked about a bunch of different things, and the big buzz is obviously around these generative pre-trained transformer GPTs. You're doing a lot of other stuff.
Yeah. So there's different types of AI. I'm not an engineer or a developer by trade.
I put you on the spot.
I'm probably not qualified to give a definitive answer to this, but I mean, machine learning is the act of a machine learning. Like, the reason we called little learning machines the way we did is because they're learning through the process of machine learning right within the game. I think a neural network is the result of that learning, depending on the type of AI. So you ultimately get this collection of neurons that are all wired together in a unique way, just like all of our brains are wired together in a unique way. In little learning machines, it's very simple. There's not nearly as many neurons in their brains as there are in ours, but that's the neural network that drives their behavior. And I think AI is just the global term for everything: machine learning, neural networks, robotics, etc.
So you mentioned at the end of your presentation that we should, I'm paraphrasing, but sort of embrace AI with love.
Yes.
Is there anything that we should be afraid of? Or should we assume that AI will always be helpful and benevolent? That's a question from Michael. Or could we end up, in a Blade Runner scenario where we have replicants trying to take us out?
Yeah, when I first started thinking about this stuff, as many of us have as kids growing up watching Blade Runner or Terminator or whatever, the fear sets in on those possibilities, and that's A, the role of science fiction, and B, the power of storytelling to kind of say, here's a cautionary tale, don't do that. So hopefully the science fiction authors of the world have given us enough to be afraid of. But the fact is, AI is happening. It's here to stay. In some ways, we'll talk about the technological singularity, I'm sure, a lot today. But in some ways, we're already at the point of no return where we can't put the genie back in the bottle. We can't go back to where we came from. We can't go back home, And so we have to deal with it. And I think the best way to deal with it is through love and empathy for these simple machines that will one day become godlike.
Wow. Okay. You heard it here first. And we're in a church. Question, how do you account for the lack of morality in AI? This is an anonymous question. There's no softballs today here on the stage. For the creative media such as Robots Make TV, which seems to be targeted at kids, how do you deal with the bad language or content moderation or things like that when you sometimes have no idea? Like when I started today, I had no idea that ChatGPT would completely fail and pick the wrong church. How do you account for mistakes and changes?
Yeah, there are different rails that are being put on systems at different levels. So say, again, this is just my understanding of how these systems work. There is a new model called GPT-4. That's this crazy, massive neural network. It's a massive brain that's so super smart. And when it came out, researchers had untethered access to this thing. They tested it, then they put rails on it. Then they release it to the public. The public can then put their own rails on it. Say, for example, we're not using GPT-4 right now for our story generation, but we have put some rails on it where it's like, if a user inputs this type of toxic language, don't ask the language model it. Or if the language model happens to put out toxic language, which it does because it's trained on the underbelly of the internet. It's trained on Reddit, and some horrible things come out of it. But there are rails that you can additionally put on it as a content creator to say, you know what, we're okay with, say, swearing, and it's not, this property isn't for kids. It looks really kid friendly, but there is swearing. So for example, this type of toxic language is not okay, but we don't mind it saying the F word or whatever because it's funny. So it's all about the rails. So
you have, speaking of rails, you have a competitor out there that's, what's it called, Seinfeld Forever or Seinfeld Infinity? Or
Watch Me Forever or something like that.
It got shut down recently suddenly turning racist, I think. And
it was a transphobic joke that the Seinfeld character went on stage and made.
So how, like you said, you kind of have to self-police, right? You have to set up your own guardrails around the content and then just hope for the best, cross your fingers?
Yeah, and even though now we are in a spot where we have our system running autonomously, we do still have humans in the loop. There are people on the stream.
Still.
But I don't think they did at that time. And we were very careful for, in the 2 years that we developed Robots Make TV, we did live streams where the audience was there and there was a human there crafting the story. And we really tried to figure out where it would go off the rails.
So speaking of humans doing stuff, what's the Ben McAvoy? Oh my God, Ben, I got butchered. What's the makeup of your team on projects like this?
Sure. So we have a couple developers and engineers, some more focused on machine learning and some more focused on game engine. We're a Unity shop, although we love Unreal as well. We'd love to do more in Unreal. But yeah, we started as a Unity shop because of ML agents, and it tied to AI very closely. We've got some artists on the team who are familiar with 3D art and game engine art. We've got a storyteller, narratologist on the team. We've got community management. We've got producers, strategists, executive producers. So we're about a team of like 9 to 11 people at any given day. And yeah, everybody wears all these different hats. So that's the best thing about being a company at our size.
Are any of them worried about being replaced?
We joke about it, but I think that we're just having too much fun inventing the new tools that are going to be on the other side of this paradigm shift. I think that we're over that now. I think that we're seeing the imaginative possibilities.
I think you heard that here first too. We're past that now. We don't have to worry anymore.
Yeah, guys, don't worry.
Do you think Jody asked, do you think the human reliance on technology has set us back in terms of our physical evolution? I mean, and this is a huge question. And it's...
Boy, I'm an expert. Oh, man. No, I'm not an expert on a lot of these things.
Well, you created a world, right, where these, what were they called? 2 million of them died.
The agents, yeah. I'm not sure how to answer that question other than to say, we're creating these virtual worlds that are liminal spaces. And so, like in tribal culture, for example, you would go away from your tribe and you'd enter the spiritual space and figure out who you are, and you'd come back and you'd know who you are as a contributing member to that society. And we're creating these liminal spaces in virtual reality and augmented reality right now. And our physical nature will never really go away, but we're going to have to get used to dealing with these, intelligent beings in these liminal spaces, and that's where we'll kind of coexist together. And I think that's really fascinating. What that does to our physical evolution, I don't know. Like, our pinkies are shrinking, and
you've seen WALL-E, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll all be on a cruise ship.
On a cruise ship, floating in
space.
Chairs. Yeah. There's another cautionary tale, right?
Let's see if there's I find the idea of generative work fascinating, and how does it affect you and your team? This is the last question. How does it affect you and your team to see emergent things that you'd completely not expected to see?
Oh, we celebrate it. That's the funnest part about what we do. Say in agents, I'll never forget coming in, that first day after training these creatures on a computer overnight, and they had behavior. They were dancing. We were like, what? They learned how to. They were doing this, this movement, or they were playing chicken, or they were playing, they were. Sometimes they would fight each other. Sometimes they would cooperate. And in Little Learning Machines, we want to make a sandbox where anyone can train them to do anything within the realms of the game. And the team has so much fun, trying to teach them how to play games with each other, learn how to pet a dog. We just introduced like a paint mechanism where they can paint the environment around them. And so, yeah, that's the fun of it, is this emergent behavior.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. I think that's it. We're going to take a break now for another 15 minutes, and we'll have Jordan come up, and I promise I'll call him Pietro before.
Just to even it out?
Yeah,
okay, deal.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
a round of applause for